Please be advised, this episode does have content that some may find distressing. As always, listener discretion is advised and it is not suitable for anyone under the age of 13.
Hello and welcome to episode 30 of It's Murder Up North, the true crime podcast that focuses on crimes that have occurred in the north of England, from the infamous to the obscure. Today's episode was a listener's choice, so hopefully I do it justice. It's hard to believe that just over 6 months ago I sat down to record the first episode. I am still on a learning curve, but I do want to say a heartfelt thank you to everyone who has supported the show. My Patreon members, those who have left wonderful reviews, and those who have continued to listen each week. It really means the world to me. You are all amazing. Talking of amazing, please check out my podcast of the week, Ye Old True Crime. Not only do I love true crime, but I love my history too. And the two hosts of this show bring the two topics together perfectly. They are well worth a listen. Here is a sneak peek.
I'm Lindsay Valenti.
And I'm Madison Stengel.
And we're the hosts of Ye Old Crime, where we discuss the funny,
hey man, he's a nice guy. And they're like, no, he's disgusting. He has hooves.
Strange. There are EVPs of spirits saying get out in a room where patients committed suicide, and obscure crimes of yesteryear.
Here, Justin, here's your first phallic amulet.
Join us Wednesdays wherever you listen to podcasts, and we'll see you next time with another tale
as old as crime.
Nine-year-old Shannon is around 4 foot 1 inch and slim, with shoulder-length medium brown hair. She has blue eyes and freckles. She was wearing a school uniform, black coat with fur around the hood.
Shannon was amongst the millions of children who headed for school on Tuesday the 19th of February. Leaving her red brick semi-detached home at 8 a.m, she met her best friend Callie. The streetlights were still burning, yet the sky was beginning to brighten as the sun slowly rose. The girls pulled their hoods tight about their faces, as an icy wind stung their cheeks. Yet despite the biting cold, the two 9-year-old girls giggled and chatted all the way to school. It was just a perfectly normal day.
Shannon was a quiet girl at the time. She was nice, she was kind, she was caring. She was friends with everyone, really. She was quite popular at the time in school. She was really outgoing. Anyone she met, she was just really nice with. I couldn't ask for a better best friend when I was younger. She made my childhood.
That afternoon, Shannon is captured on the CCTV footage of the local swimming baths. Her dark hair tied neatly in a ponytail. Dressed in black trousers and a white t-shirt, she gently swings her PE kit bag as she follows her classmates out the electric doors to make their way back to school. At 3:10, the school bell signalled the end of the day. The hordes of children escaped out into the town of Dewsbury. By 4 p.m, the schoolyard was silent, and most of the children were at home doing their homework, watching television, or, like my children, pestering their parents for food. All except Shannon Matthews. The 9-year-old hadn't arrived back at the home she shared with her 3 siblings, her mum Karen and stepdad Craig. It was already getting dark and the temperature was hovering just above freezing. Unsure what to do, Karen called at the houses on the estate, most of whom had children who went to school with her daughter or played with Shannon, but no one had seen her. And it was so cold that the usual bustling street was deserted. Hurrying back inside, Karen called Shannon's school. The receptionist confirmed that the 9-year-old had been at school all day and was no longer on the premises. At 6:48 p.m, Karen Matthews made the one call no parent ever wants to make.
Police emergency. I want to put daughter missing, please. Right, how old is she? 9. 9? Yeah. When did you last see her? She went to school this morning. Right, have there been any arguments or any? No, not at all. No. Have you been in touch with any of her friends or anybody like that? Everywhere I can think of her, friends-wise and family and everything. And nobody at all? No. Any information on where she can be? No. Does she go to school and come back on her own normally then? Yeah. Right. So you were expecting her home what at 4 o'clock? About half past 2 where she's come back from school. She needs to work through. Does she have a mobile phone or anything like that? No, just at home. Just right. So there's no way of actually ringing to find out. But you've run round all the friends. Yeah. You've been in touch with all the relatives. Yeah. And there's nowhere else that you've got left to look. No. Have you been in touch with the school after they confirm whether she went to school at normal time at 10 past 3? Right. What to call her? Shannon Matthews. Has she been missing before? No, first time. And there's been nothing to intimate why she should go? No.
According to the charity Action Against Abduction, more than 140,000 children are reported missing in the UK each year. That is one child every 5 minutes. And on February the 19th, 2008, Shannon Matthews joined that statistic. Her disappearance would come to highlight the stark division in our society, and the actions of a few would tarnish the lives of so many. In less than an hour, the police had begun their search efforts, starting with the little girl's home address. They also collated names of all Shannon's friends and relatives, and retraced the route the schoolgirl would have taken that day. By the time Shannon had been reported missing, the temperature was -4 degrees Celsius, and a thick fog had descended. This hampered the search efforts as the police helicopter could not be utilised. The search was suspended at 2:30 a.m, while inquiries continued back at the police station. By the afternoon of the 20th of February, the police search for the 9-year-old girl was well underway, with all available resources being drawn in to help. Dog handlers walked the recreation ground behind Shannon's house. Officers on horseback rode up and down the various streets, and high above the estate, the police helicopter hovered. Officers visited Shannon's school and addressed the children. Her friend Callie later recalled hearing the news that her friend was missing.
When I found out she was missing, we was in school and a policeman came in. We was all in a school assembly. The whole school was sat down and he came in and said, "We've got some news." And then we were all like anxious and scared to hear what it was. And then he says, "Oh, Shannon's been missing." And we just all burst into tears. Like literally everyone in that whole school were crying. We didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to feel. Emotions were just everywhere. We just cried and cried and cried.
As night fell over the Dewsbury Moor estate, the lights of the town flickered in the valley, while the streets around Shannon's home were lit by the torches of residents and police officers, searching in gardens, sheds and garages, hopeful that the little girl would be found. Posters of Shannon, with her hair in a ponytail and her distinctive freckles that graced her cheeks and the bridge of her nose, had begun to appear on lampposts. Despite the quick and thorough response, the investigation was yielding few clues to the whereabouts of the missing child. Outside the youngster's home, the media had descended with their bright lights and cameras, desperately jostling for the opportune position to capture the desperate parents as they walked out onto the doorstep. Wearing a grey sweatshirt, her hair pulled tightly back from her face, which was devoid of makeup, Karen Matthews approached the press. Her eyes were red, her appearance that of a distraught mother, flanked by family and friends for support. This was the nation's first glimpse of the mother whose daughter had disappeared. Thrust uncomfortably before the baying media, Karen Matthews made an impassioned plea for her daughter's safe return.
Shannon, if you're out there, please, darling, come home. We love you so much. Me and your dad, your brothers, your sisters, everybody loves you. Your dad's missing you so much, Shannon. He's even out looking for you. Please come home, Shannon. If you're out there, come home. If anybody's got my daughter, my beautiful princess daughter, please bring her home safe.
The support for Shannon's family from those who lived on the Dewsbury Moor estate was powerful. They spent any spare time they had assisting in the search. A temporary headquarters was established, where the volunteers could coordinate their efforts. They collected and printed missing persons posters, and talked about the latest developments. In an interview with Channel 4 News on the 21st of February, Detective Superintendent Andy Brennan stated that one line of inquiry was that Shannon had supposedly mentioned that she wanted to run away from home. He went on to describe the little girl as being vulnerable and, quote, certainly not streetwise. These concerns were echoed in the police appeal held later that day.
I'm appealing to anybody who has any information whatsoever as to where Shannon may be or what has happened to her to contact the police. There is a huge investigation taking place with many lines of inquiry being pursued, and it is vital that if anybody has a shred of information, however unimportant they may think it is, to pick up the phone and contact the police straight away.
By the 23rd of February, the police operation had been stepped up, with Shannon being gone for 4 days and the night-time temperatures dropping below freezing. There was concerns that, had the child been injured somewhere, she could die from exposure. Specialist underwater search teams were mobilised to search nearby lakes and ponds, while over 200 homes in the area had been searched. A specialist incident room had been established, and although they received over 300 calls with potential leads, none gave them the information they needed to find Shannon. No one recalled seeing her after she left school, and there'd been no sightings of anything suspicious or out of the ordinary. Search efforts continued with fingertip searches conducted along the route Shannon would walk to school. Every bin, drain and car was checked. It was a half-a-mile walk from her home, 10-minute journey along residential streets, and due to the close proximity and it being a route used by many of the children on the estate, it was curious that no one noticed anything untoward. The community rallied around the family, offering whatever support they could, even holding a vigil for the little girl's safe return. The close community was stunned that one of their own had disappeared, and it brought them together, remaining hopeful that Shannon Matthews would be found. Mother's Day came, a day that for so many is filled with sorrow and joy, remembering those we have lost and celebrating the wonderful mothers in our lives. For Karen, a mother of 7 children, it was going to be an especially hard day. Not only was her daughter still missing, but she was facing the media once more to make a public appeal. This time she appeared more composed and rested, wearing a white t-shirt with the words, "Have you seen Shannon?" printed in black across the front. In her hand she held a small brown teddy, which she awkwardly attempted to pose with.
Can you remember what last time you said to her was, or what last time you said?
See you at tea time.
That's what you said to her. And what did she say?
I'll see you at tea time, Mum. Love you. Well, I think that somebody out there will know Shannon was supposed to probably know me as well. And it's just, I just want to know I'm safe, really. It makes me think now I can't trust people who's really close to me anymore. I just can't trust them.
In the days that followed, police released the recording of Karen's 999 call, in the hope that someone would come forward. The call was played on all the major news broadcasts, with an image of Shannon emblazoned on the screen. It was reported that, on seeing her daughter's picture, Karen pointed and stated, quote, "Look, Shannon's famous." Media attention was dwindling. As the days turned to weeks, news stories captured the front pages. But for West Yorkshire Police, the family, and the community, they refused to rest till they found Shannon. The family received a devastating blow on Sunday the 9th of March, when the Mail on Sunday published an article containing allegations by Karen's family, suggesting that Craig, Shannon's stepfather, had been abusive towards the children, and speculating that he had something to do with the little girl's disappearance. Claims both Karen and Craig strongly denied. This forced them to reluctantly agree to an interview with Sky News to defend themselves.
Let me ask you directly, have you ever hurt a child? Would you ever consider hurting a child? No. Were you ever cruel to her?
No. There's even a lot of people that could back that up. There's a lot of my friends and family around here. So they even trust me with their kids. I look after my babysit, we play, don't we? Same with our Courtney. I would never hurt anyone, basically.
Almost 3 weeks since the little girl had disappeared, it was clear that the support and sympathy that had initially been shown was dwindling. Not only had rumours started to swirl suggesting that someone in the family was involved, but the community found themselves under attack. The family had agreed to be followed by Cutting Edge, a documentary series which wanted to show the plight of the family as they waited for Shannon to be found. During filming, Craig read aloud an article from the Sun newspaper, which exemplifies the changing attitudes towards the case.
Shannon Matthews has been missing for nearly 3 weeks, and apart from her neighbours, no one seems to give a toss. Not the right profile, you see, not a right class. Karen Matthews has 7 kids by 5 fathers. She lives in a scruffy council house on a impoverished council estate near Leeds. Her boyfriend, who is 10 years younger than her, looks both simple and scruffy. The problem is that Shannon Matthews isn't as pretty as Maddie McCann. She's not blonde or cute or beautiful. You don't look at her and want to cry.
The disparity between the cases of the 2 missing girls, 3-year-old Madeleine McCann and 9-year-old Shannon Matthews, is discussed not only in the media but by the family and their supporters. As was so coldly pointed out by the Sun newspaper, Madeleine was the ideal missing person to sell newspapers. She was a cute 3-year-old with blonde hair and light green eyes. Her parents were well-off individuals, both with professional careers. When they made their appeals, they appeared polished and likeable. Shannon's background, however, was less appealing. She lived in one of the most impoverished areas of Britain. The council estate she lived on was likened to the TV show Shameless. The people who lived on the Dewsbury Moor estate were labelled benefit cheats and other derogatory terms. During the Cutting Edge documentary, Karen lamented that she, unlike Kate McCann, lived on a council estate, wasn't, quote, high-classed or, quote, a snob. Those who were running the volunteer centre did everything they could to raise money to help keep awareness of the case alive. They organised raffles and sponsored walks. Many of the people who donated money did not have disposable incomes, yet they still gave not only their money but their time. This again was something that upset the community. They felt that people like the McCanns could afford to buy the publicity, yet for Shannon, people seemed reluctant to provide financial support. Since starting this podcast, I've become acutely aware that stories are often covered in the tabloids if they involve someone who is attractive or there is a sensational aspect to the case. Many crimes are either never reported or are printed on the middle pages, surrounded by adverts for the latest car or holiday deals. The whole ethos of my show is to try, where possible, to shine a light on the person, not the victim, because no matter what their colour, race, gender or social status, they are someone's child, someone's sibling, someone's relative or someone's friend. In an attempt to gain renewed publicity for the case, Karen Matthews agreed to a candid interview on BBC Radio 4's The Today Show.
It's a slightly complicated family picture you have, isn't it? You've got, 7 children by, 6 fathers?
5.
By 5 fathers. And 4 of the children live with you?
Yeah.
It has been suggested she was unhappy and she ran away.
She's not the kind of girl that would run away.
Have you considered whether she was unhappy then?
She wasn't.
Karen, you'll know the reason I ask is that there's been a lot of coverage of not least your family, your parents and your brother talking about how Shannon had a difficult, and your other children had a difficult relationship with Craig?
No, that's untrue.
I'm quoting your parents. We've never seen him, Craig, beat Shannon with our own eyes, but the kids have said it's happened. They've suggested that Craig was hitting Shannon.
No, he hasn't. Never, ever touched her. Never.
This did not help win over public sympathy for her. Amidst all the rumours and speculation, West Yorkshire Police asked the press to focus their coverage on the fact that a 9-year-old girl had gone missing, and the force maintained that they still hoped to find Shannon alive. However, this public statement was contradicted by their actions, when on the 13th of March, specially trained cadaver dogs were introduced to the search efforts. After 3 weeks without any new leads, the police had to consider the prospect that Shannon had been taken by a stranger and they were now seeking her remains. Dr. Michael Genus, criminology professor at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, stated in an article for ABC News, "Although stranger kidnappings are very, very rare, children are usually murdered quickly, sometimes within the first 3 hours, but usually within the first 2 days."
I just want to interrupt you there. This coming from Yorkshire Police. Detectives and search officers attended a house at Lydgate Gardens at 12:30 this afternoon. During a search of the house, officers located Shannon Matthews, who was found concealed in the base of a divan bed. That information coming from West Yorkshire Police. So confirmation here on BBC News 24 that Shannon Matthews has been found.
One of the neighbours, Christopher Heaps. What did you see, Mr. Heaps?
Yes, well, first thing I heard was police breaking the door down, and I went out to see what was going on because of the noise. And then when I went out, I saw the policeman carrying the young girl in the arms.
And did you know then it was Shannon Matthews?
Well, I didn't know, and I was stood by him, and I said to him, "Is that Shannon?" And he says, "Yes, this is Shannon." And she just looked round, and she was so calm and placid, and as though, what's going on, what's happening.
What do you know about that particular flat?
I don't know much, really. He just seems to be like a loner, and you don't see much of him, really.
Right, we're being told that Shannon Matthews is currently being looked after by West Yorkshire Police. That news coming into us at the moment. So, police brought her out, and then what happened? What did you see? Tell us some more about what you saw as soon as she was brought out.
Yeah, well, I saw the man being taken away and dragged down the steps and handcuffed and put into the van. And then the little girl was put into her car and taken away with either plainclothes policeman or something. But she was very calm and, she didn't look upset. She was clean and respectable.
So she looked quite calm?
Yes, very calm, yeah.
And how did the man look? Give us a description of him.
I couldn't really see him because he was being dragged and he was on his knees more or less, and, I don't know whether he was resisting arrest or what, but I couldn't see his head because it was in between two police officers.
How many police officers were involved in this operation as far as you could see?
Well, at the time, I would have said there were about 6 or 7,
And they seemed to know exactly where they were going as far as you can see, when they came to that area?
Yes, well, apparently what I've heard is they went to knock on the door and he wouldn't respond, so they broke it down and went in, and I think one of the neighbours must have alerted the police to it.
All right, Mr. Heaps, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
As the news channels began broadcasting that Shannon had been found alive, the community were filled with overwhelming joy as the police confirmed the news.
I picked up the latest action of the day, and they've been doing it for the last 3 weeks. Hundreds of actions: go out, trace, eliminate, implicate, as far as you can, individuals that have come into the frame of suspects. And they went out to an address on Friday morning. It was an address that had come to some interest and prominence as a result of a series of small pieces of jigsaw coming together. Shannon is safe. She's well. She's in the place where we think that she's safest at the moment.
On the 14th of March 2008, 24 days after Shannon had been reported missing, police had received a report from a resident who lived in a ground floor flat. The informant advised that they believed they had heard the sound of a child's footsteps in the flat upstairs, which was odd, as the man who lived in that flat dwelt there alone. When the police followed up on this lead, they made their way up the dark, narrow staircase to the small two-bedroom flat, where they discovered the 9-year-old concealed in the base of a divan bed. The Matthews family liaison officer, Christine Freeman, confirmed that Shannon was totally oblivious, bless her. She didn't realise what was going on, which was probably a good thing. The news brought the reporters and camera crews back to the Dewsbury Moor estate. Once again eager to capture the relief of her family and friends, the journalists and photographers gathered outside Shannon's home, as Karen and Craig exited their house hand in hand, the latter dressed in a black and grey V-neck jumper with her hair in a half-up, half-down style, while Craig wore a blue Dodgers sweatshirt and white baseball cap. Yet there was one thing the couple were missing. Smiles. After 24 days, it is only natural that the couple were tired, overwhelmed with emotion, and fed up of being in the public eye. Within 24 hours of Shannon being found, the name of her abductor was revealed to the public. He was named as 39-year-old Michael Donovan, a man described as a loner who lived in a shabby two-bedroom flat just over a mile away from Shannon's home. The abductor was held for questioning, and by the 17th of March he was charged with the kidnapping and false imprisonment of the 9-year-old girl, whom police speculated he picked up in his car as she made her way home from school on February the 19th. Despite the abductor being charged, Shannon had not returned home, a fact that her mother, Karen, lamented. She bemoaned the fact that her child would not be home for Easter. The reason the 9-year-old had not been allowed to come home became clear when police arrested her stepfather, Craig. Not only was Michael Donovan known to the family, he was in fact Craig's uncle. Police also arrested Craig's sister Amanda on suspicion of assisting an offender, and his mother Alice on suspicion of attempting to pervert the course of justice. Yet as the flat where Shannon was held was searched, and through police conversations with the 9-year-old, another suspect was arrested, in a turn of events that would make this case infamous. On the 6th of April, the mother of Shannon Matthews, who had pleaded for her daughter's safe return, was questioned by police on suspicion of perverting the course of justice.
Well, I mean, why did you phone the police when you knew where she was?
So nobody suspected anything.
And how would, by phoning the police, people not suspect you? What did you hope to achieve by that?
What do you mean by that?
Well, you said I'd phone the police so nobody'd suspect anything. What do you mean?
I think so Craig wouldn't suspect me doing what we're doing with Shannon, as in leaving him and stuff.
So this again was part of your act, to make it look like she was genuinely missing?
Yeah.
When you really knew that she wasn't genuinely missing. Is that right?
Yeah.
So then the police have come to your house, have they?
Yeah.
And what have you told the police?
I just told them what she was wearing.
Did you tell them where she was?
No.
Well, why not?
Put in front of everybody and everybody ever got me for it.
Yeah. Why didn't you tell them? So why didn't you tell the police where she was at that time?
Because I didn't exactly know where she was. She was living somewhere, I didn't know where.
In a further interview, Karen claimed her mother was responsible for the plot to kidnap Shannon.
The truth will come out in the end. Yeah, he's still around, but I got, between us four,
Yeah.
and I should have told Jules a long time ago, before my dad died,
Yeah.
something on his deathbed, my mum knew all along
What?
where my daughter was.
Your mum?
My mum. That was on my dad's deathbed.
What, when she was kidnapped?
She's the one that was getting the pieces delivered to his property.
It wasn't just his parents.
Mine and all.
It was also...
Because she wanted my kids, she wanted me to leave him, I'm not saying his head, something's sick. My mum wanted me to leave him. My dad turned around and said, she'll learn from her own mistakes. And I have. My mum kept saying to me, all my boyfriends, oh, they're not good for us. But she never said one word about my sister's husband. Never mentioned about her. Oh, no, he's not good enough for you.
Your own mother?
My own mum.
Physically, not your stepmom, your own mum. Nice up there, isn't it?
In events that stunned the nation, Karen Matthews, Shannon's own mother, was charged with perverting the course of justice and child neglect, as it was revealed that she had been responsible for orchestrating her own daughter's kidnapping. On the 4th of December 2008, Karen Matthews and Michael Donovan appeared at court, and the details of the plot were revealed to the jury. Prosecution speculated that the pair was motivated by greed. They saw the attention and financial support the McCann family had received when their 3-year-old daughter Madeline had gone missing from their holiday home in Spain. Inspired by the reward money that was offered in the McCann case, Michael and Karen hatched a plot to stage a kidnapping. They picked Shannon because of her gender and the fact they apparently thought she was the most photogenic of all Karen's children. The plan was that Michael Donovan would pick Shannon up on her way home from school in his Peugeot, under the pretense that he was going to take her to the seaside. Instead, Donovan took Shannon back to his 2-bedroom flat at Lidgate Gardens. It was here the court heard that Shannon was held for 24 days, in squalid conditions, images of which were shown to those present. The walls were grimy, smoke-stained and peeling, the carpet threadbare, and the furniture rickety and in ill repair. In the dimly lit flat, Shannon was given a cocktail of the drug temazepam and a travel sickness medication, which made her drowsy, docile, and oblivious to what was going on around her. The mix was so potent that when she had been rescued, large traces of the drugs were found in her system. It was suggested that Karen and Donovan had been administering the drugs to Shannon for up to 20 months prior to her actual abduction. As well as sedating the little girl with drugs, the pair, wishing to limit her movement around the flat, attached an elasticated strap to Shannon, which was in turn attached to a beam in the attic. This was designed to prevent the 9-year-old from accessing windows and doors, with just enough leash to allow her to walk from the bedroom, where she was held, to the bathroom. It was also suggested that the tether was primarily used when Donovan had left the property. While being held in captivity, Shannon was given a list of rules, which were read out to the court. They stated, quote, "Rules. Number 1. You must not make any noise or bang your feet. Number 2. You must not go near the windows. Number 3. You must not get anything or do anything without me being here. Number 4. Keep the TV volume low, only up to 8 or lower. You can play your Super Mario games, and you can play some DVDs, and you can play the CD music." The most damning part of the list, which implicated Karen's participation in the abduction, were the letters I-P-U, written at the end of the list, which was believed to stand for "I promise you." Apparently a phrase used by Karen to ensure Shannon did as she was told. Shannon was found concealed in a slide store divan base, made of a wooden frame covered in fabric, consisting of 2 identically sized sections that clip together. The divan base is designed to provide a platform on which a mattress can sit. Most divan bases have drawers for storage, however some have a door that can be slid open to access the interior of the base. Shannon was found hidden inside, in a space that would have been roughly 38 centimetres in depth, 80 centimetres in length, and 135 centimetres wide. Police believe that Shannon was allowed to move within the limitations of her elasticated leash. However, she was made to hide under the bed if anybody visited the flat. The court heard how Shannon had been, quote, disturbed and traumatised by her ordeal. The police found that they were only able to speak to the little girl for short bursts, as her 24-day ordeal had had a deep psychological effect, including her being unable to sleep due to her experiencing horrific nightmares. It was, however, during these short conversations that Shannon mentioned the fact she had spoken to family members while being held in captivity, once again implicating her mother. It was however determined that following consultation with psychiatrists, that Shannon would not be able to give evidence at trial, as this may add to her already fragile state. It also emerged that after speaking to the family initially, the assigned family liaison officer requested another FLO to be brought in, as he had felt there were inconsistencies in Karen's account, and her general behaviour seemed odd. Therefore, the officer wanted a second opinion. Both family liaison officers concluded that at such an early stage, this could be deemed as suspicious, or just how Karen was dealing with the situation. It was also brought to light that Shannon had a large extended family, with members who had been logged as missing on numerous occasions, or some having criminal records. This formed a large and complicated aspect of the investigation. Police also could not dismiss the fact that Shannon may have actually run away, as they uncovered that social services had a record of interactions with the family, and allegations of abuse by a stepfather had also been made. In regards to the discovery of Shannon, it was revealed that whilst conducting door-to-door inquiries, that information came to light regarding a man who lived alone in his first-floor flat, who seemed to have made changes to his normal routine. For example, he would wash his car at least once a week. However, he hadn't done so in the weeks since Shannon was reported missing. Neighbours also noted that despite the man living alone, there had been noises which suggested another person was in the flat. When police knocked at the door of Michael Donovan's flat, they received no response. However, his neighbours had reported that he went everywhere in his car, which was still parked up in the communal car park. Suspecting that Donovan was inside the property, the police forced entry to the flat. Believing they had heard a child's voice, they headed into one of the 2 bedrooms, and there they found the little girl hidden in the bed base. Other than the cocktail of drugs in her system, it was believed that Donovan had taken care of Shannon. She appeared clean and well-nourished. The court heard that Michael Donovan had abducted a child prior to taking Shannon. In the course of a bitter custody battle with his ex-wife, he kidnapped one of his own daughters, which is possibly why Karen was willing to work with him. 40-year-old Donovan was revealed to have criminal convictions for arson, shoplifting and criminal damage. He was also determined to have a below-average IQ, with learning difficulties. When he was arrested, Donovan immediately claimed Karen was involved in the kidnapping of Shannon. He also told police that he only agreed to help her under the threat that she would kill him otherwise. The pair were found guilty of kidnapping, false imprisonment, and perverting the course of justice, and were both handed 8-year sentences. Summing up at Leeds Crown Court, Mr Justice McComb stated, "The offences that you committed were truly despicable. It is impossible to conceive how you could have found it in you to put this young girl through the ordeal that you inflicted upon her. It is incomprehensible that you could have permitted your friends, neighbours, and in your case, Matthews, even your children to sacrifice time and energy in extensive searches for the supposed missing child. It must be doubtful whether they could have conceived or continued these offences alone, without the assistance or the connivance of others." This final statement suggested that the pair did not work alone, and was quickly addressed by West Yorkshire Police immediately after the conclusion of the trial.
A number of people have been arrested, and some of those have been re-arrested throughout this inquiry. All of the available evidence has been examined and closely scrutinised by the Crown Prosecution Service. There is no evidence whatsoever for other people to stand charged at this time. Clearly, if fresh evidence comes to light further down the line, then that will be reassessed by ourselves initially. Then we will, if necessary, pass it on to the Crown Prosecution Service. But at this moment in time, the case is closed.
Not everyone was convinced. Karen's friend and supporter, Julie Busby, stood outside court and echoed the thoughts that they didn't act alone.
Everybody knows we haven't heard the full story. Everybody knows we haven't. He's just turned around and he said that, sat on his bench. He's just turned around and said this is not the full story. So obviously it's not the full story. And if Karen ain't going to break and say what the full story is, what can us little people, if you like, do to help her?
Following the pair's convictions, questions were asked regarding the involvement of social services and whether they failed to protect Shannon and her siblings, which prompted a full review. It highlighted that Karen Matthews was brought to the attention of social services following the birth of her first child in 1996. This child was placed on the Child Protection Register for just under 2 years due to concerns for the infant's safety and well-being. However, after Karen had completed parenting classes, the child was removed from the register. Karen underwent psychological assessments in 1997 and 2004. And was determined to have, quote, borderline learning disabilities. The report commented on Karen's numerous relationships and the effects they had on her ability to take care of her children. Quote, it must be recognised that periods of family disruption and inadequate parenting were interspersed with periods when this mother, and sometimes her partners, provided adequate parenting and met the children's needs. It adds that it found evidence of a mutually loving relationship between Matthews and her children, although she could not always translate this into good parenting. It concluded, quote, this case starkly demonstrates the difficulties of responding effectively to families where parenting is characterised by low-level neglect, which at times escalates into inadequate parenting, with detrimental consequences for children's well-being. Ultimately, the review concluded that no fault could be placed on social services, as this was a unique and unpredictable set of circumstances. Karen was released from prison in 2012, serving just 4 years of her 8-year sentence. She moved to the south of England, where she lives alone, unable to find work. She was surviving on benefits. Years later, she gave an interview to the Mirror newspaper, to whom she insisted she was, quote, scared she would die alone. She also refused to accept responsibility for the kidnapping of her child. She stated, quote, I am not Britain's worst mum. I didn't kill anybody. None of it's true. I'm on the edge. From the start, I didn't know where she was. Others were involved. I didn't have a clue. You can't kidnap your own child. I know the truth, and I wasn't involved in it. I still have nightmares, thinking that it's all going to happen again. As for Shannon, not much is known about where she is now. As soon as she was discovered hidden in Donovan's flat, the decision was made that she would not return home. The 9-year-old was given a new identity and was placed into foster care, where she was unable to contact her friends or family. She would now be 21 years old. It is impossible to comprehend the psychological effect her mother's actions have had on her. Not only was she betrayed by her mother, due to her mother's actions, Shannon was taken away from everything she knew. My only hope is that wherever Shannon is now, that she has been given the love and support she needs and has been able to live a normal life. There are so many elements to this case, and it is definitely one that divides opinion. To some, Karen is naive and easily manipulated, with poor decision-making skills, while others view her as a cold and calculating individual, who is a compulsive liar and manipulator. Looking at her past, she had a strained relationship with her family, resulting in her leaving home at 14, having 7 children to 5 different fathers, which suggests she struggles to build meaningful relationships, and her choices of partners have been questionable. For instance, Craig was subsequently charged with the possession of child pornography, and following her release from prison, she entered a relationship with a man who also had convictions for sexual offences. However, Karen was also able to lie, not only to the police and the media, for instance, holding the teddy bear during the Mother's Day press conference, which was an idea some argue was inspired by the McCanns. It transpired that despite her claiming it was Shannon's favourite teddy, Karen did not know the name of the teddy, and people close to her suggested that the cuddly toy was bought especially for the press conference. She also deceived those around her regarding Shannon's disappearance. A whole community came together to look for Shannon, and she betrayed them, not only by continuing the charade, accepting their support, money and kindness, but her actions drew negative attention to the close-knit community. Was it all just an act by a very accomplished liar? Or is there more to the story? As always, I would love to know your thoughts. You can get in touch via Facebook on the It's Murder Up North discussion group, or follow the show on Twitter. If you are loving the show, help spread the word by leaving a 5-star review wherever you listen. And finally, if you want to help pay for research materials and other items to produce the show, please join Patreon today at patreon.com/It's Murder Up North. In return, you will receive early access to the episodes, a shout-out on the show, and more exclusive content. Episode 31 will be available on Sunday. So in the meantime, keep an eye on those shadows.